the most tricky and complicated thing in Honkai Star Rail. These congregations of imaginary energy all follow different concepts, and 3 of them are clashing in Amphorius: remembrance, erudition, and destruction. 3.5 left us largely in the dark, especially with the Deliverance trailer dropping and raising way more questions than answers, but it seems that 3.6 will offer a lot of overdue answers. You see, we had a live stream earlier today, and so many things got revealed and teased, and questions and answers strewn all over the place that I can't help but talk about it. Danheng is back, Evernight is chaotic, Sunday is here, Lygus is gone, and the 13th Coreflame just got revealed as per my most recent prediction. But of course, this isn't the only prediction I made that was spot on. And there is so much to glean from this 3.6 teaser that I can't wait to talk about it. So without further ado, let's get into this. Because this is Honkai Star Rail Era of Evernight Explained. Okay, so that was a lot to take in, so let's start off with the circumstances before we get into talking about the 2 stars of the show this patch, shall we? Because I believe that we can learn a lot from what we see, but even more from what we didn't. Let me explain. Lygus is gone, and according to Danheng, we reached a compromise with the caveman, so he will be leaving us alone. For now. But this does sound concerning because of the word compromise. Because, you see, a compromise goes both ways. And we are probably not going to be excited to hear about his end of the deal, because we offered him something. Compromise means that we offered him something. What did we give him? A spot on the Simulated Universe project team. That's right, the caveman is not going anywhere, and we're gonna have to endure his incessant yap for the rest of the game. I'm kidding. That would suck, wouldn't it? So let's move on to more circumstances that could be related to the deal among the geniuses or not, because none of the Chrysosairs show up, and neither did Herta or Screwlum. Now, perhaps this is due to putting a spotlight on Evernight and Danheng, but there are 9 of them, minus Irene, Finon, and Terravox, of course, and we did not get so much as a glimpse of any of them. So as strange as this may be, it is possible that they are somehow not involved in this cycle, which would be bizarre. And I'm not really convinced of that. I'm sure they're still around, I just can't prove it yet. But moving on, the Grove of Epiphany got shot by a giant laser reminiscent of Nikador's laser from what we saw in 3.0, and for some reason the mimetic entities of the Grove have fused with the Destruction's golden blood to create new monsters. However, these are not Black Tide enemies, so we know that Caslana is still miraculously holding back the Black Tide for us, or maybe Lygus took that out as per the deal. Or Caslana's just dead and the Black Tide's still here. Alright, so these are the new things that we will be contending with, but this isn't the main draw of this patch. So let's talk about Danheng, the taller Danheng. Yes, he heard you guys calling him short, and he has gone from 5'11" to 6 foot by sheer force of will. I'm kidding. There is actually a lore reason for this. Because in the creation myth of Amphorius, Georios along with other titans like to create things, but for some reason Georios really liked to make stuff way too big. But don't get me wrong, he was known as a gentle giant, but never quite understood the concept of subtlety. Hence why his creations, the mountain dwellers and the dromuses, are so absolutely massive. But Danheng's leg lengthening surgery aside, let's talk about how he became Zhongli. Because this was teased back in 3.4, and I made a video about the prospect of this happening. Because, you see, in the As I Have Written book, a very clear line was drawn connecting the permanence with the power of the earth. And considering that the Vidyadhara's power is very much elemental in nature, especially with Cloud him being able to control water, air, and fire, I made the claim that the Coreflame of the Earth would unlock some latent powers in Danheng. But this was just the tip of the iceberg, and I missed something that would have made my point so much stronger. Because I pinned a comment that states that the other High Elder Vidyadhara control other elements, and I somehow missed this, because Mons Grandis of the Utre appears to have strong ties to earth powers, and his ancestor is depicted among the mountains, where the others are with ice, fire, air, and water. And y'all know how much Hoyo loves their elemental dragons, so this was foretold a long time ago. But instead of Georios giving Danheng his buff, it's Terravox, who we are seeing for the very first time. We've heard about him from time to time, but this is our first time actually seeing him, and in Chrysoster's fashion, it's when he's dying. But we're used to that enough by now, so back to Danheng. Because he's preservation now, following in the footsteps of Georios for being known as the most gentle titan, which is incredible, because now we have a grand total of 5 preservation characters, not counting the Trailblazer, and 3 if you only count 5 stars. Yes, we had more Remembrance 5 stars than Preservation for a bit there, let that sink in, but not too long because the Remembrance just got a new character, extending their numbers to 4 and dunking on the Preservation because why not? We have Evernight, who seems to be the wild card of this patch. She's not evil, but she's definitely unhinged. Let me explain. Because we just got news that Evernight is a part of March that shows up when March is in grave danger. But that suggests that she's always been there, and apparently she's never been in grave danger up until now, and maybe when the propagation attacked us in the Argenti story. And we gotta talk about this because the way Hoyo writes characters with a second self is always just Honkai Impact 3rd Sela. We've already got some of this with Casterus, but with Evernight, it's literally just March 7th's Veliona. And if you don't believe me, I want you to take a look at this. Then take a look at this. Then back at this. Then take a look at them side by side. See the similarities? Good. Now I'm going to tell you about the purpose for why Sela manifested Veliona. Long story short, Sela was a very vulnerable orphan girl forced into fighting the forces of the Honkai. But as the innocent, gentle, and lonely girl that she was, she had to find a way to protect herself. So her, also being an extremely rare case, manifested a stigmata which gave her a huge boost in power, and the stigmata came with a personality opposite to her own because it was based off of her weaknesses, who we call Veliona. And this second self would dwell in the back of her consciousness and only show up when Sela was in danger, and I hope that sounds familiar. And despite her looking very much evil and having a savage fighting style fit for a villain, Veliona is very much just as pure-hearted as Sela and only seeks to protect Sela and those Sela cares about. So TLDR, she got stronger, formed her own entirely different personality, and Sela eventually gave her own body, and now the two live as twins happily ever after. And if you're a Star Rail only player, this is the inspiration for why Sela's eyes turn red, and that hasn't been explained yet because Sela's lore disappeared into the Sea of Butterflies, illusions of things that don't exist, and in the meantime of it disappearing among the Sea of Butterflies, they've given her lore to another character. Twice. Because this violation of personal space is something Veliona does regularly, and even the hand placement, I've said it before and I'll say it again, Hoyo is truly subtle as a brick. But my thinly veiled grievances with the travesty that is Sela's lore aside, let's talk about Evernight's unhinged nature, shall we? Because we know full well that she has connections to the Remembrance, and she also has her Enigmata jellyfish in tow as her memo sprite. So I'm going to pose a possibility that I have not seen anyone make yet. You see, people have always said that Evernight is on one path or the other. But since we know that she will resort to any and everything in order to keep March 7 safe, I think we need to consider the fact that she could be both Remembrance and Enigmata, because these two paths are very much intertwined. Mythos is said to have risen from Fu Li after all, and I don't think it is deniable to say that she isn't at least connected to the Enigmata.
Evernight draws near. Time for some sweet dreams.
Careful. Don't get too lost in those sweet dreams.
The voice lines don't lie. So what if a certain unhinged mimetic entity who has no qualms with breaking rules decided to use both paths at once, creating a being who not only looks into and possibly deletes memories, but also uses memories to warp reality via memory manipulation. And being in a world of memories and memoria, we are talking about a person who can gaslight things into existing better than Cypher can, because she literally wouldn't even need to lie. She just deletes and changes history by manipulating time, because time is remembrance. Yes, the implications of what Evernight can do is absolutely terrifying to say the very least. This is probably why memo keepers are scared of her. But that's not all, because she also has her own plan for Amphorius. A plan that probably involves more memory, history, and time manipulation, because for some reason this Coreflame blessed by the remembrance is probably the reason why this cycle looks so different from the others. So in all likelihood, Evernight's plan is already in motion, which could be good or bad, because whether this was due to Herta and Screwlum using the ultimate protocol to make changes, or Evernight's influence, a 13th Coreflame has just been revealed. And just as I so recently predicted, Cyrene is involved because we only see her once in this trailer, and it's right here. The hidden 13th Coreflame is right behind this door, and it just so happens to be the same door we see broken apart when the Chrysosairs are with their Coreflames in the Deliverance trailer. It's all coming together, along with Sunday taking a more active role that I also predicted a long time ago. We are so back with the theory accuracy, and that is just about all I can glean from this trailer. I'll be sure to update you guys if I find anything else, because I'm sure with Hoyo's love for hiding things, there is more to uncover. Besides March having her camera, why does she have her camera with her here? We never gave that back to her, but either way, this is Honkai Star Rail's era of Evernight Explained. Y'all already know that I had to drop my thoughts on this as soon as I saw that the live stream fell on an upload day, and I just wanted to test out a later time slot, so here we are. There are a ton of hidden lore details that let us peek into the future, and I'm sure there are more that I haven't addressed. But these are my initial thoughts, and I'll probably go into the more hidden stuff in another video. This patch is going to go crazy, and I am hyped to see what Evernight has in store for us, because though Xandar is a great villain, he got on my nerves, and I'm glad to get rid of him for a patch. The yap needed to end. And speaking of yap, I don't remember the last time Himiko spoke English. But what do you guys think? Be sure to let me know, and I'll see you all in the next video. Peace, y'all.